Good morning, Josan, esteemed government officials, distinguished guests, industry professionals, and all participants who have gathered here today at the vibrant Expo Convention Center for the ESG for Climate Action's International Summit. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome each one of you to this pivotal event, jointly hosted by the World Green Organization and the Institute of Supply Management of Hong Kong. My name is Patricia Slawinska, and I'm from Impact Advisory, and I will be your MC for today. So I hope that you can smile, you can give me the energy back, and I'm very excited for today's summit. That's the spirit, exactly. Thank you. Tadze, Mungai. Let us all discover the future of sustainable business at ESG Xchange 2024. I would like to take this opportunity and thank the organizers, the co-organizers, conference partners, and the supporting organizations and the fellow sponsors. Your support has been instrumental in bringing our vision to life. A round of applause. Thank you. Once again, thank you all for being here. Let us make today's summit not just an exchange of insights, but a catalyst for sustainable change and beyond. Welcome to the ESG for Climate Action's International Summit. Let's innovate, inspire, and integrate sustainability into our blueprint for our future. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived. Distinguished guests, without further ado, it is my honor to invite Mr. Alex Cheung, Chairman of the Board of Governors, World Green Organization, to the stage for the welcome remarks. Please join me in warmly welcoming Mr. Alex Cheung. Mr. Cheung, the stage is yours.
Good morning. Dear Deputy Chief Secretary CHEUK, Dr. Samin Nam, United Nations, Ms. Fabienne Michaud, UNDP, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow climate advocates. I'm honored to stand today before you on behalf of the WGO. Thank you for joining the 5th ESG for Climate Action's International Summit 2024. And we are here to collectively address the urgent issues of climate change today, which requires immediate action, collaboration, and unwavering commitment to battle this global crisis. I would say that this is no longer a question of whether climate change is real, but rather a question of what we can do about it. The time for passive acknowledgement has passed. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time for bold and decisive action to prevent us from moving to the tipping point of the climate change. And as a former banker, I strongly believe that one critical aspect to fight this climate change is sustainable investing. By leveraging our financial resources towards sustainable and eco-friendly initiatives, we not only drive positive changes, but also pave the way for a greener and more sustainable future for generations to come. Sustainable investment is not just a choice. It is a responsibility we owe it to our planet and future generations. Our conference this year not only helps to enhance our understanding of new ESG standards and disclosure requirements, but we will also focus on different green financial instruments, which supports the SMEs to go green as well. ESG standards drive innovation in green finance by encouraging the development of new investment products such as green bonds, sustainability-linked loans, and social impact funds. These financial instruments are designed to align with ESG standards and criteria and promote sustainability goals. According to Bloomberg, for example, sustainable bond issuance achieved more than $1 trillion in 2023. And the largest green bond issue was from the Italian government, which amounted to Euro 10 billion. And collectively, all the European governments issued green bonds of about close to Euro 200 billion. Aside from that, social bond sales in 2023 is also very substantial at $135 billion. And we do see growing demand from investors who show more interest in incorporating ESG goals into their investment criteria. The increase of signatory in PRI, the principles of responsible investment, increased significantly from 3,000 to over 5,000. And financial institutions are developing new green products and services to meet the diverse needs of investors and borrowers, such as carbon tokenization, bond tokenization, as well as green insurance, which are relatively new. Governments and financial regulators are also introducing policies to support green finance, such as tax incentives and green finance standards and green taxonomy. Moreover, standardized frameworks like the Green Bond Principles and the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure are helping to increase transparency and accountancy in green financing to avoid the so-called greenwashing. As you may notice, investors, especially those focused on responsible investing, are more likely to allocate capital to green finance projects and instruments that align with ESG standards. ESG standards help build investor confidence by providing transparencies, accountability, and metrics to assess the environmental and social impact of investments. The usage of green financial instruments is expanding across various sectors, which includes renewable energy, sustainable transportation, green buildings, and climate adaptation projects. Companies, governments, and financial institutions are increasingly leveraging these instruments to raise capital for sustainable initiatives while aligning with ESG goals. As we deliberate over these 2 days, let us remember the power that lies in our hands through both ESG, green finance, and also green technology. Let us collaborate, innovate, and take decisive actions to combat climate change and build a more resilient future for all. The time for action is now. And together, we can make a difference. And I hope every one of you can walk away in these 2 days with some concrete and fruitful ideas and actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheung. Indeed, let's take the action. Next, let's welcome Dr. William Yu, founder and Chief Executive Officer, World Green Organization, to share his welcome remarks. Please.
Good morning. Dear Deputy Chief Secretary CHEUK, Dr. Sammy Nam, United Nations, UNESCO, Ms. Fabienne Missos, UNDP, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and fellow climate advocates. So on behalf of World Green Organization, a very warm welcome to you all to this international summit and exhibition. I think that is the first time that the event takes place in the Conventional Center. I'm so excited to see so many different guests, VIP, from Hong Kong, Macau, US, Canada, UK, India, Australia, Japan, Malaysia, Thailand, definitely from mainland China also. So more than 10 places. So this is the 5th international conference in collaboration with the United Nations, UNESCO, Hong Kong Stock Exchange. We have their head of carbon trading, and also Financial Services Development Council, Cyberport, and also a new partner, Hanyang University. So we also have representatives from the UNDP, UNEPFI. Thank you very much for traveling a long way to Hong Kong. Not to mention the other international sustainability and ESG standards, such as ISSB, GRI, CDP, MSCI, and also other types of leading indicators like red risk and gold standard. So you may agree it's with utmost urgency that we gather here today at this climate change conference to address the critical issue that is threatening our planet and humanity at large. So the impact of climate change and natural disaster is becoming increasingly visible. So with damaging consequence on our environment, economies, and communities. I can give you an example. From 2010 to 2020, there were over 7,000 climatic disaster reports globally, a 35% increase compared to the previous decade. So this disaster resulted in over 700,000 deaths, affected the life of 4 billion people, and caused an estimated $41.7 trillion in economic damages. Okay, let us not turn our blind eyes to the statistic that paints a grim reality. So rising global temperatures, melting ice cap, extreme weather incidents, biodiversity loss are stark reminders of these urgencies of action. So now we stand at a crucial juncture where every decision we make now will shape the future of our planet for generations to come. So, insurance loss, for example, due to climate disaster has been on the rise in recent years. The increased frequency, severity of those disasters, such as hurricanes, wildfires, floods, leading to high costs for insurance companies. According to Swiss Reinsurance, the global insurer loss from natural catastrophe in 2023 exceed $100 billion for 4th consecutive year, with earthquakes like in Turkey and Syria. So that is the costliest catastrophe, estimate insurer loss of $6.2 billion. Recently, the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership conducts research and provides valuable insights on how business and policymakers can navigate the complexity of climate change and its associated risks. While some strategies such as risk mitigation, adaptation, sustainable practice can help address climate risk to some extent, but it is important to acknowledge that certain risks may be largely unpredictable or unhedgeable. So this highlights the critical importance of proactive and collaborative efforts to build resilience and sustainability for our society. So for climate action and solution, we cannot underestimate the role of green finance and green technology in our journey towards decarbonization. So innovative finance mechanism, technological advancement play a pivotal role in accelerating the transition to a low carbon economy. So for this conference, we have received more than 100 applications. Finally, you invite over 30 ESG tech ventures, green tech ventures from local and overseas to come over to introduce their latest technology to listed company SME in Hong Kong. So by mobilizing resources towards sustainable projects and fostering the development of all these green solutions, I think we can pave the way for a more sustainable future. Finally, let me name a few achievements this year for this conference. Over 100 speakers, doubling the last year number, speakers from more than 10 locations, regional ESG standard representative come in person, and also the new elements such as decarbonization, technologies, demo, and exhibition. So we try to integrate the themes and content of green finance, green tech, and ESG, the very critical elements of climate action. Also, we have new partners, our co-organizer, Institute of Supply Management Hong Kong, in West Hong Kong, very grateful for their support. And we have different workshops, ISSB workshop, conducted by their board member tomorrow, Sustainable Supply Chain Management Forum, ESG Investing Forum, SDG Impact Standard Introduction, and also the Green Finance for SME. Too many to mention in details, but let me take this opportunity to thank all the sponsors to make this important event happen. And let's join together, stop keep talking, take action, try to address all these disasters. You experience all this heavy rainfall, flooding, right? Hong Kong, we have a rainfall in one day equivalent to 3 months of the entire rainfall. So all this happen around the world in Greece, in Brazil, more to come, even worse. So I think let's join hands and work together and to make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yu. Indeed, it is very important to take the action now, especially on the conjunction of transformation of finance and technology and ESG. It is important that we recognize the changes of climate change and how it is impacting us and our future generation. So the time is now. Who is going to join me? Who is going to join me to act right now? I want to see the hands up. Everyone, hands up. Yes. I am making sure that you stay awake. Thank you. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, we are now honored to invite our distinguished and officiating guests for some group photos to the stage. So definitely bear with me once I will be mentioning everyone's name. Yes. And we start with Mr. CHEUK Wing-hing, GBS JP, Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. Please join us on the stage. Mr. Alex Cheung, Chairman of the Board of Governors, World Green Organization. Mr. Albert Hung, Founder and President of World Green Organization, Co-Chairman of ASEAN Economic Club. Mrs. Fabienne Michaud, Director, SDG Impact, Sustainable Finance Hub, United Nations Development Program. Mr. Nelson Cho, President, ISM HK. Dr. William Yu, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, World Green Organization. Mr. Thomas Gnocchi, Head of the European Union Office to Hong Kong and Macau. Applause, please. Dr. Jimmy Chiang, Associate Director General of Investment Promotion, Invest Hong Kong. Mrs. Serena Mack, Executive Director, Sustainable Finance, Institutional Banking Group, DBS Bank. Mr. Wilson Tang, Chief Executive, BOC Group, Life Insurance Company. Mr. Ken Chiu, Head of Carbon and ESG Product Markets, Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing. Mr. Kendrick Wong, Director, Kingsflare Development Limited. Mr. Keith Choi, Senior Director, Intermediaries Supervision, Securities and Futures Commission. Thank you. Please remember to smile. Hold the right props. We have the official photographers here. Yat Yi Sam, smile. Great, wonderful. Now we would like to take a group photo with all the sponsors. I would like to welcome the representative of the Asia Pacific ASEAN Green Deal Center from the Hang Seng University of Hong Kong to the stage, and the following sponsors: Diamond Island and Company Limited, New Spark International Green Energy Technology, Healthy Giant Limited, Catamine Limited, the Invesco Hong Kong Limited, Jippool Innotech Limited, Million Tech Development, Yao Xin Yue, I hope my pronunciation is good, Tobot Solution Limited, Mastercode Aquashield Limited, Mastercode Film Center, Wegwear Hong Kong, A4CR, the Hong Kong and China Gas Company, Hampton Herb Lab Co., Kerry Properties, Hewitt Packard Enterprise, Go Capital Partners, Pioneer Insurance Group, AEL International Holdings, Riskery Consultancy, Cantabridge Consulting, TÜV Rheinland Hong Kong, Wasserfall Group Limited, Hong Kong Housing Society, Denver Co., Health Advisor Limited, Roots and Shoots Malaysia, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, USU Property. Please join us to the stage. Can we please ask as well to put the props, to hang them here? Yes. I will put it, yes, thank you. Oh, one more. Yes, perfect. Fantastic. We will take pictures. Hi, Lido. Tata. Hi. Take smile, please. Wonderful. And now I would like to invite all the board members of World Green Organization to join the group photo on the stage. Please come forward to the stage. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Good, now I would like to ask everyone to go back to their seats while we will wait as well for Mr. CHEUK Wing-hing, GBS JP Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, to remain on the stage for his keynote speech, please. And now a little bit for light-hearted guidance before we dive into the day's activities. In the spirit of sustainability, let us practice energy conservation. I encourage you to switch off or mute your devices. And not only will this help us reduce our collective energy consumption, and your bills, obviously, but it will also ensure that the only beeps and rings you hear today will be the figurative ones as we exchange groundbreaking ideas and forge new partnerships. Mr. CHEUK Wing, GBS JP, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Patricia. Mr. Alex Cheung, Dr. William Yu, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you. It is my great pleasure to join you on this morning at the ESG Xchange 2024, ESG for Climate Actions International Summit. Thank you, World Green Organization, for holding such a meaningful event. With participation from various sectors, this summit offers a valuable platform for industry leaders, regulators, and companies to share experience and insights on ESG and other sustainability issues. As Asia's leading international financial center and green finance hub, Hong Kong has been channeling international capital to sustainable projects in Asia to support the region's green transition. We are getting good results. For example, the total green and sustainable debt, including both bonds and loans, issued in Hong Kong exceeded US $50 billion in 2023, with the volume of green and sustainable bonds arranged in Hong Kong topping the Asian market. accounting for 37% of the total. As of March this year, the number of ESG funds authorized by the Securities and Futures Commission was over 220, with assets under management over Hong Kong 1.3 trillion, representing a year-on-year increase of 19% and 14% respectively. The event today echoes the Hong Kong SAR government's direction to enhance sustainability disclosures by enterprises. Accurate information is essential to the promotion of sustainable financing. This is also the priority of international organizations and government agencies in the next few years. To deepen Hong Kong's green and sustainable finance development, enterprises must align their practices in sustainable disclosure with international standards. In March this year, the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau of the Hong Kong SAR government published a vision statement, setting out the vision and approach of the government and financial regulators in developing a comprehensive ecosystem for sustainability disclosure in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Institute of Certified Public Accountants will develop the local sustainability reporting standards, i.e. the Hong Kong standards, that align with those of the International Sustainability Standards Board, ISSB, as well as the complementary application and implementation guideline. Our target is to launch a roadmap on the appropriate adoption of the ISSB standards in Hong Kong within this year, so as to provide a transparent and well-defined pathway on sustainability reporting for businesses, as well as giving sufficient time for them to make preparations and develop readiness for the pragmatic implementation of the Hong Kong standards. As the first step to prepare listed companies towards eventual sustainability reporting in accordance with the local sustainability disclosure standards, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has published a new climate-related disclosure requirements for listed companies for implementation starting from January 2025, under a phased approach. Having regard to the size of the company and nature of the disclosure, specifically Scope 1, 2, 3 of the greenhouse gas, GHG, emission and non-greenhouse gas disclosure requirements. To equip small and medium enterprises with the means to manage their environmental footprints and encourage market participants to improve sustainable business practices, we launched a set of GHG emission calculation and estimation tools for free public access in February this year. Besides, a climate and environmental risk questionnaire has been developed to assist the sustainability reporting procedures of corporates and raise their sustainability visibility to lenders, investors, and supply chain clients for better accessing sustainability financing. It will also facilitate financial institutions' collection and assessment of company-level data for risk assessment and relevant business decision. Ladies and gentlemen, this summit is a call for action to tackle the imminent sustainability challenges confronting humankind. With Hong Kong's eminent strengths and advantages as a green finance center in the region, we can work together to make a real difference and create a world of sustainable practices. I look forward to close partnership with you on promoting ESG and wish you all a rewarding and inspiring event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CHEUK Wing-hing, GPS JP, Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. Thank you. Your words are truly inspiring, and yes, it is time for action to take it now and to move forward, because Hong Kong is already providing a lot of changes, especially in the regulatory space, so let's embrace them. Next, I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Ken Chu, Head of Carbon and ESG Products Market, Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited. Please, the stage is yours. Please help me to welcome.
Deputy Chief Secretary CHEUK, Alex William, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My special thanks to the World Green Organization for organizing this event and inviting me to speak here. It's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to address a room full of ESG experts and professionals who have the collective goal of shaping the world for a better future. Sitting at the heart of Asia capital markets, HKEC sees connectivities as essential to realizing opportunities and solving the challenges we all face as a community. And we see connectivities as essential to solving the problem of climate change. There is a now widespread recognition of the role of green transition in driving long-term value and sustainable development in the region, especially in China, the world's fastest growing economy and largest carbon emitter. This gives Hong Kong an important role to play. As an international financial center, Hong Kong has a unique role to play in driving the region's net zero transition and in supporting the global sustainability agenda. With respect to Hong Kong EX, we're playing three roles. HKEC as a regulator, we're fully committed to leveraging this unique position to support the creation of low-carbon, climate-resilient global economy. As a regulator, we provide ESG frameworks and standards for corporate. This enables them to progress their sustainability journey and attract funding. Like what Secretary CHEUK mentioned, HKEC has published the market consultation conclusion on the enhancement of climate-related disclosure under the ESG framework based on IFRS S2, which will come into effect on the 1st of January 2025. While some economies have mandated IFRS S2 alignment through their legislature, Hong Kong is among the world's first exchanges to propose such regulatory enhancement. While Hong Kong EX also play a role as a market operator, we provide a world-class platform for the entrepreneurs and scientists driving green innovation to connect with global capital. We continue refining our listing framework to ensure we can better support companies and innovators in the green technology space, including Chapter 18C, Specialist Technology Chapter, which we introduced last year. Hong Kong EX is also contributing and building Hong Kong's sustainable finance product ecosystem. For example, like many speakers have mentioned about the number of GSS-related bonds listed on Hong Kong EX has expanded by over 400% since 2020. We now have 336 GSS bond listing, accounting for over 1,000 billion Hong Kong dollars. Additionally, just over a year ago, we launched Core Climate, Hong Kong's first carbon marketplace. It's aimed to provide an integrated marketplace that can connect capital with climate-related products and opportunities in Hong Kong, mainland, and beyond. These are just a few actions we have taken as a core financial market infrastructure in supporting green finance development. And finally, Hong Kong EX, as a listed company, a responsible corporate, we look to lead by example. We have a long history of strong ESG stewardship across our own operations. Last year, we pledged to achieve group carbon neutrality by 2024, which is this year, and net zero by 2040, a decade earlier than previously planned. We have also been collaborating with other exchanges and financial institutions to share best practices to improve ESG ecosystem. For instance, Hong Kong EX is part of the Hong Kong Green and Sustainable Finance Cross-Agency Steering Committee since 2020 to raise market standards, as well as a signatory to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. So fighting against climate change is a collective responsibility, a collective commitment, and require collective actions, like what Alex and William mentioned. At Hong Kong EX, we use our role as core financial market infrastructure to connect with leaders in government, business, finance, and regulatory communities to share insights and understand opportunities in the region. And most importantly, forge stronger relations to advocate for sustainability. I hope today's event is one of many conversations among our communities, and I hope all find it insightful and enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. CHEUK. Thank you. Next, we would like to invite to the stage Ms. Fabienne Michaud, Director, SDG Impact, Sustainable Finance Hub, United Nations Development Programme. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow crazy souls who together know we must and can change the world. It's an honour to join you as we address one of the most pressing issues of our time, the global climate crisis and our collective duty under the Paris Agreement to limit temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees. According to the World Economic Forum, climate change is already costing the global economy $16 million an hour, with projected costs ranging between 1.7 and 3.1 trillion US per year by 2050. But of course, this is not just an economic, scientific, or political challenge. It's also a profound moral imperative. Imagine the future we are building today. When we look our children in the eyes, what legacy do we want to leave them? Will it be a world where we take decisive action, or one where we let opportunities slip away, leaving them to bear the brunt of our inaction? The choices we make today will echo through the lives of our children and grandchildren. They will inherit the world we build now and will judge us on this pivotal moment. We must ensure that our legacy is one of courage and conviction, demonstrating that we acted decisively and when it mattered most. The recent 2024 People's Climate Vote, a landmark poll conducted by UNDP in collaboration with Oxford University and Geopol, surveyed over 75,000 individuals across 77 countries, speaking 87 different languages. The message to global leaders is unmistakable: the people demand action. This collective voice underscores the need and desire of global citizens to move beyond political and ideological divides and come together to combat climate change. We have a mandate for bold, transformative action, especially the urgent need to accelerate the shift away from fossil fuels. While progress has been made, it's insufficient. Our current approaches are not ambitious enough. We need a comprehensive strategy that addresses climate change and ensures a fair transition for all. This means prioritising renewable energy, investing in green technologies, supporting high-emitting sectors in their transition, and aiding communities most affected by these changes. Rising climate anxiety, especially amongst our young people, reminds us that the clock is ticking. They witness the impacts of climate change, extreme weather, rising sea levels and biodiversity loss. This anxiety is a clarion call for action. We cannot let them down. Meeting our climate goals is about more than environmental sustainability. It's also about keeping the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals within reach. Climate action is linked to ending poverty, ensuring food security, providing clean water, and fostering peace and justice. Failure to act on climate change jeopardises all of these goals. Our approach must be all-encompassing, addressing social, economic and environmental dimensions of development. This means ensuring no one is left behind in the transition to a low-carbon economy, protecting the vulnerable and providing them with the tools to adapt and thrive. We must also scrutinise current investment and financing strategies, critically assessing where they fall short of delivering the outcomes we need and want. In conclusion, the importance of meeting our global climate aspirations cannot be overstated. It's about safeguarding our planet and securing a sustainable future for generations to come. It's also about honouring the collective will of the people and acting with urgency this crisis demands. As UNDP Administrator Arkham Steiner said, our vision of a sustainable future will only materialise through our actions taken today. And as former UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has reminded us, we are the first generation to be able to end poverty and the last generation that can take steps to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. In fact, the two are inextricably linked. We are global citizens living in an interdependent world. Together we must rise to this challenge for the sake of our children, our planet and our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Michaud-Fabienne. Thank you. As an ex-UN consultant, I couldn't agree more actually with this. And now I would like to invite Mr. Thomas Gnocchi, head of the European Union office to Hong Kong and Macau, to the stage. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Mr. Alex Chung, Chairman of the WGO, and Dr. William Yu, CEO. It's a real pleasure to be here on behalf of the European Union at this ESG for Climate Actions International Summit. Under the European Union's Green Deal, the EU's goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030 and to become the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. With the adoption of the European Climate Law in 2021, these targets were made legally binding for the EU and its member states. Under what we call the Fit for 55 package, the EU launched a comprehensive revision of EU legislation across the board, driving a complete modernization and transformation of the EU economy to achieve our climate objectives. And we have made very substantial progress already. Since 1990, the EU has achieved a 25% reduction in emissions, while simultaneously achieving 60% in economic growth in the same period. This shows that the decarbonization and economic growth can go hand in hand. But the EU's ambition is not only to transition to a green economy at home, but also to drive decarbonization across the globe. In my presentation later this morning, I will present key actions and tools by the EU to spur ESG, global partnership, and the green transition in the EU and the world. Some of them, including ESG regulations, new rules on reporting and due diligence for corporations, have an impact on stakeholders and companies outside the EU too. Given the urgency, we are moving forward. Asia will play a key role in solving the climate crisis. The EU is collaborating with the region to make that possible. The EU and its member states are the biggest donor of international climate finance in the world. 29 billion euros in 2022, with about a third of that total going to Asia. And the Common Ground taxonomy is a great example of fruitful collaborative work between the EU and China. In Hong Kong, the EU has regular exchanges with the government and industry on greening the economy, and sustainability is a key area of our cooperation. In April, my office organized, together with the European Chamber of Commerce, Invest Hong Kong, and the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, the third edition of the Greenway event in Hong Kong. The event was attended at the highest level from industry and government, including by the chief executive and several secretaries of the Hong Kong government. Industry leaders from the EU and Hong Kong proposed a set of recommendations to green our cities, our buildings, our transport, our trade, and our finance. According to Hong Kong's statistics, the EU is the largest foreign business community in this SAR, ahead of the US, Japan, and the UK. EU companies are at the forefront of sustainable business practices, and they have already provided great innovative and sustainable solutions in support of Hong Kong's decarbonization goal. The EU is also Hong Kong's third largest trading partner for goods and for services. According to the EU statistics, the stock of EU investment in Hong Kong accounts for almost 100 billion euro. In turn, the EU was the second destination for Hong Kong's FDI globally. This shows the extent of our very strong economic partnership. And since both the EU and Hong Kong are pursuing carbon neutrality, there are a lot of areas for cooperation and synergies. We can build on our strong economic and financial links to achieve the green transition in Europe and in Asia. Alone, we cannot win the fight against climate change and the environmental crisis, but by working together, we still have a chance to provide a livable planet for the next generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gnocchi. Thank you so much. Indeed, it is our responsibility, and accordingly as well to the SDG 17, to act together in partnership to fight it. Now, I would like next to invite Mrs. Serena Muck, Executive Director, Sustainable Finance, Institutional Banking Group, DBS Bank, to the stage to deliver the speech. Thank you.
Good morning. Deputy Chief Secretary CHEUK, Mr. Alex Chung, Dr. William Yu, distinguished guests, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here today on behalf of DBS with industry leaders, regulators, and businesses united by a vision to accelerate ESG development in Hong Kong and beyond. It's actually great to see many familiar faces here today as well. So sustainability is a topic more mainstream. It's already very popular. We have heard many great speakers ahead of me talking about what it is. So I'm sure we all know what it is. So today I'd like to maybe take this topic slightly different angle, and I want to talk about what sustainability is not. So what it is not. I think you've heard for a bit already. It is not a choice. It is a necessity. In today's world, climate change does pose significant risk to global and local economy alike. We already heard about all the billions of dollars that is at risk and also all the investment that will be needed. And also, I think speakers like Ken also mentioned that developments such as carbon neutrality plans and disclosure rules updates across geographies are all triggers for corporates to dive deeper into it. Now, on the other hand, it's also worth noting that there's a growing evidence that sustainable businesses perform better financially. Not only do they have lower capital costs maybe, they will also enjoy better operational performance, and research does show that they have less volatility in stock prices. So indeed, it is not a choice, but a necessity. Now, what is it also not? It is also not merely a risk and regulatory topic. So we spoke a lot about disclosure rules, we spoke a lot about the risk, we spoke about just transition. But it's also obvious that sustainability and ESG integration brings business opportunities and is a smart business strategy. So the ecosystem of sustainability, such as climate technology, renewable energy, new consumer products and services, or maybe sustainable finance for banks like us, is continuously expanding. So it brings along new businesses, new services, new products. So I think if you see a lot of the booths out there later today, you will notice that this is actually not just a risk and regulatory topic. Now, last but not the least, what it is not. It is not just for large and listed corporates. So a lot of us were thinking about all disclosure rules, it impact listed corporates. We spoke about sustainable finance, maybe for large corporations. But it's worthwhile to note that this topic impacts companies across the spectrum of large corporates and SMEs. Why so? With more and more consumers and stakeholders throughout the upstream and downstream of the company's value chain actually demanding sustainability-conscious business operations, they wanted to see more sustainable products, it is actually inevitable that business need to think about pivoting and evolving into more sustainable practices as an essential business strategy for their long-term survival. So actually, we all need to care about this. This is not just for large and listed corporates. So we now know, A, it's not a choice but necessity. B, it's not merely a risk and regulatory topic, but business opportunity. And C, it's not just for large and listed corporates. So what do we do now? Now that we've spoken about what sustainability is not, I wanted to share about what we or DBS wants to do. As part of the sustainability ecosystem, DBS wishes to contribute as a super connector using our extensive coverage across corporates in Hong Kong to unite like-minded companies to do more on sustainability. Now, on the group-wide level, as of 2023, we have already achieved over Singapore $70 billion or US $51 billion in sustainable finance transactions. And we've also forged partnerships in Hong Kong particularly with utility companies, payment solution providers, and we're also exploring solutions with companies to engage their supply chain on sustainability performance. These are all real-life cases. And of course, we invite you to join us in expanding this partnership circle to make a greater impact in Hong Kong. Well, I always like to think that it takes a village, but maybe in the Hong Kong terms, I should speak about it takes a housing estate to actually change and actually make a difference on sustainability. I hope this conference offers an opportunity for participants to explore partnerships, to brainstorm solutions. Me and my DBS colleagues are here for further discussion as well. But together, we can create a resilient and sustainable future for our business and communities. And I hope we all make the most of this incredible event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Milk, for such an inspiring call to action. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Jimmy Jiang, Associate Director General of Investment Promotion, Invest Hong Kong, the stage is yours. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have great pleasure to join ESG Xchange 2024 today. I would like to first of all express my sincere appreciation to the World Green Organization for organizing this remarkable event with Invest Hong Kong proudly serving as a sponsor. Celebrating its 5th edition, this event has become a premier platform for international and local stakeholders to engage in cross-sectoral discussions on collaborative actions towards a greener and more sustainable future. Climate change is certainly a global challenge. According to the report by the World Meteorological Organization released earlier this month, global temperature is likely to exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level temporarily in the next 5 years. This is a stark warning as we are getting increasingly difficult in achieving the goals set in the Paris Agreement of keeping the average global temperature rise within 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. In Hong Kong, we experienced an increase of about 9 times very hot days and 2 times hot nights compared to 30 years ago. To take climate action forward, Hong Kong has set the carbon neutrality goals by halving our carbon emissions before 2035 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2050 in our Climate Action Plan 2050. And to pursue these goals, the promotion of technological advancement in areas of energy, buildings, weights, and transport is gaining traction internationally. In the latest budget, 23 to 24, announced by our Financial Secretary, emphasis is put on the city's determination to become an international green tech hub and also a green finance hub. Hong Kong has various supportive policies to promote green tech development by encouraging companies in Hong Kong to conduct R&D and adopt green technologies. For example, the government has the Green Tech Fund, Innovation and Technology Fund, and also the New Energy Transport Fund, which have already granted over 800 million Hong Kong dollars for a few hundred R&D and pilot projects. Last week, the government announced the strategy of hydrogen development in Hong Kong, aiming to accelerate energy transition by addressing the technical challenges in hydrogen development and adoption. We'll also promote the development of hydrogen-powered garbage trucks, trams, refueling stations, and power generation facilities. And all these require new solution providers to Hong Kong. Invest Hong Kong's mission is to attract foreign direct investment, including investments in green technology and innovation, which is of strategic importance to the economic development of Hong Kong. And our dedicated carbon neutrality team works very closely with key industry stakeholders, including, of course, the World Green Organization and also the EU Office to Hong Kong and Macau, through organizing and supporting various relevant business events, both locally and globally. Last year, Invest Hong Kong supported over 90 relevant events globally, from which we identified more than 100 ESG-related companies looking to set up their operations in Hong Kong. And today, I'm very happy to see many local and international tech ventures attending this summit. And if any of you are interested in tapping into the Hong Kong market or the regional market via Hong Kong, Invest Hong Kong will be more than happy to assist you. Do contact us or visit our trade booth outside. So with that, I wish ESG Exchange 2024 a great success, and I hope you all enjoy the upcoming discussions and make a lot of useful connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cheng. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Keith Choi, Senior Director, Intermediary Supervision, Securities and Futures Commission, to the stage. A round of applause, please. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here today in this very important summit. Now, to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement and Hong Kong goals to realize carbon neutrality before 2050, it is important that more capital is channeled to finance initiatives that would help us reduce greenhouse gas and transition into a more climate resilient economy. To do this, we need to increase investor awareness on how climate change may affect their investments. Now, but investors need consistent and comparable ESG information to make an informed decision. By providing investors with the information they need, it would encourage money flows towards more sustainable investments that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, and this is where the SFC as a securities regulator hopefully can help. Allow me to share with you two of our recent initiatives. Number one is the greenhouse gas emission calculator, which Secretary CHEUK mentioned earlier. To promote the availability of Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emission by companies operating in Hong Kong and mainland China, the SFC led the effort of the cross-agency steering group to engage the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology in the development of a greenhouse gas emissions calculation tool. The tool was launched in February this year. It is easy to use and freely accessible at sustainablefinance.org.hk. Users can simply put in the electricity or fuel consumption figures of their companies, and the tool will automatically calculate the Scope 1 and 2 GHG emission with a simple click. Now, by using this calculation tool, users can identify their major source of emission. This would hopefully help them to develop strategies to reduce carbon emissions and transform into a more sustainable business in the long run. The calculation tool also using methodology that is aligned with international standard, namely the GHG protocol. This enables companies to report their GHG emission in a common language as other global market players, and also provide investors with an easy way to compare the carbon emissions of different companies. Now, on top of this calculation tool, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology also developed an estimation tool. Now, this estimation tool is designed to help asset owners, such as asset managers and banks, because the companies in their investment portfolios may not necessarily report their carbon emission figures. So by simply inputting this company's annual energy consumption figures into the estimation tool, asset owners can easily estimate this company's Scope 1 and Scope 2 carbon emission. Now, another effort undertaken by the SFC is our support for an industry-led working group to develop a voluntary code of conduct for ESG ratings and data products providers. This initiative is originated from the International Organization of Securities Commission's recommendations. The primary goal, again, is to foster greater transparency, quality, and reliability of ESG information for investors. Providers who signed up to this code will need to fulfill principle-based standards covering four main areas, including governance, transparency, systems and controls, and management of conflicts of interest. They also need to disclose publicly a self-attestation document which explains the approach in implementing the code. The public consultation of the draft code had just ended, and the industry working group is now assessing comments received. Now, in conclusion, To achieve the goals set forth by the Paris Agreement and Hong Kong's commitment to realizing carbon neutrality, we must take decisive and collective effort. Now, it is really encouraging to see so many like-minded professionals gathered together today in shaping the futures of ESG development. The SFC will continue to play our part and do our best to help achieve these goals. I hope you enjoy this summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Choi. And yes, I can definitely recommend the calculator as well. Great tool. And as you can see, there are many tools and applications possible already to implement the change that is necessary. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Kenrick Wong, representatives, Kingsfield Development, Research and Development Director, Nanoshields Technology. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Dr. Yu, Mr. Chung, Deputy Chief Secretary of Administration, Mr. CHEUK, honored guests, thank you. I'm incredibly honored and feel fortunate to be at this event and to be on this stage. And it's been very fortunate for me to see this event grow over the last couple of years. I'm really grateful that we're able to have this kind of platform and summit for exchanging of the ideas and actions experience. But what we've seen in our industry in the manufacturing stage, we've seen polls and surveys across all industries that show that Gen Zs and millennials are having a growing passion for involving sustainable impact, not just in their everyday life, but also impacting for where they want to work. Our own industry has seen significant changes, not only in that aspect and the regulatory aspect, but we have seen increasingly that the market and the consumers themselves have rising expectations and demand for products that are sustainable, both in itself, such as materials, but also in how they are made. Businesses such as ourselves are receiving this type of feedback loud and clear, but we are still in the early stages of fully adopting the proper ESG principles. The how and the what is still a huge learning curve for most of us. I'm incredibly grateful that we have a growing and solid platform such as this summit to grow and educate industries across the globe. Hong Kong's role, not only as a financial center, but also as a general hub and forefront for where businesses can educate and grow their capabilities to integrate ESG principles into their operations. With that said, I'm very much looking forward to the speakers and panels of the summit and how I and our company can continue to learn and share and make a more positive, sustainable impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that is very interesting as well, and indeed there are some innovative changes. Next, we would like to invite Mr. Wilson Tang, Chief Executive Officer, BOC Group Life Assurance Company Limited, to the stage. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm honored to be here with you all today on behalf of BOC Life at this pivotal international summit focusing on climate actions. As a leading insurer in Hong Kong, we are pleased to be a part of this important conference, which brings together over 1,500 cost sector leaders, government officials, regulators, ESG experts, as well as industry practitioners from the world to discuss critical topics, trends, and best practices concerning ESG targets, carbon neutrality, green finance, and technology in addressing one of the most pressing issues of our time, the climate change. Thanks to the commendable dedication and contributions of WGO and all supporting and participating organizations who have made a remarkable commencement of the summit. At BOC Life, we integrate ESG and sustainable development into our business strategy, operations, community investment projects, and corporate culture. We promote green finance and carbon reduction utilization advanced technology. Our Chief Investment Officer will share with you this afternoon our story in driving positive change through investment strategy by prioritizing ESG-related investment, supporting projects that mitigate climate risk, fostering responsible ESG-centric business practices. We have forged cross-industry collaborations to create win-win and share value for our society. Our meaningful partnership with WGO to help launch Asia's first ESG accelerator program for startups is a good example. Empowering green tech enterprises, propelling them towards success while achieving sustainable development goals. The ESG startup pitching sessions on day 2 tomorrow will be a unique showcase of the accelerator program. You are most welcome to join and enjoy a fruitful interaction with these promising green tech companies. Lastly, I wish the summit a huge success. Looking forward to optimizing variable opportunities offered by the global platform to spread in-depth and insightful discussion, new perspectives and solutions to make tangible differences in navigating challenges against climate change. Together, let's create a resilient yet sustainable world with a concerted effort for generations to come. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Tang. Indeed, together, let's create a resilient and sustainable future. Now, how is everyone feeling? Good? Lei ho? Lei ho ma? Okay, good. Okay, now as we continue to the next sessions, it's time to delve into our first theme of the morning session, United Nations Climate Initiatives and Action, and I'm honored to present our conference partner, Dr. Sang-min Nam, Director of the Environment and Development Division from UNESCO. Dr. Nam, the stage is yours. Thank you. A round of applause, please.
It's an honor and pleasure to virtually join this conference and deliver a few remarks on behalf of ESCA. Over the months, many parts of the world have experienced record-breaking high temperature, which happened for the 20 consecutive months. Some parts of the world, including Guangdong, Guangzhou, have experienced unprecedented rainfall and flooding. Now, climate crisis has become the new normal. Thus, a call for carbon neutrality, which is the theme of this conference, is becoming increasingly apparent, not just as an aspiration, but as an imperative. Independent of their development stages, over 80% of Asian countries have announced their carbon neutrality or net zero target. Governments from both developed and developing countries recognize that a transition to net zero is essential for transforming their economies and enhancing their competitive standing in a rapidly evolving landscape of low carbon technologies and industries. Developed countries understand they should not be left behind in this evolving landscape towards a net zero economy. In this connection, the comprehensive and proactive integration of ESG practice cannot be merely an additional corporate strategy, which was mentioned by many previous speakers this morning. It is a primary business practice to counter the multi-faced challenges posed by climate change and make the business be part of a net zero economy. The business sector in Asia finds itself at a critical crossroad. Asia contributes over half of global greenhouse gas emissions. With that share still on the rise, it also serves as the global manufacturing hub. This means climate change and the transition to net zero have a profound implication for business practice here. In this respect, ESG should shape every strategic choice related to climate and environmental action. We have also seen an increase in transparency measures of ESG reporting and integration of ESG-related information into mainstream financial reporting. It becomes more mandatory sustainability reporting. The latest EU Corporate Sustainability Report Directive makes 50,000 companies from this year subject to mandatory reporting, including non-EU companies for doing business with the EU. However, given that small and medium-sized enterprise account for more than 90% of business in Asia Pacific, it is also critical for SMEs that support the global supply chain must take action and align with the regulations. Last year, I attended this conference and learned that over 200 SFCs authorized ESG funds collectively represent more than US $150 billion. In 2022 alone, the volume of green and sustainable bonds issued in Hong Kong constituted over 35% of the Asian market, amounting about $80 billion. And this morning, I listened to speeches, and there was further great progress. So this is already outdated data. So I wish to update my own information on this. So such progress did not certainly occur in isolation, but Hong Kong's vibrant finance sector and the SAR government's enabling policy for green financing. In this regard, last year at this conference, I spoke on the significant role and potential of Hong Kong to offer their invaluable insights to Asia-Pacific nations, guiding other developing countries in establishing conducive environment for climate finance. So I would like to reiterate this point again today. Hong Kong's business sector, including financial institutions and the SAR governments, could actively share their expertise, knowledges with other partners and governments in Asia, seeking effective financing solutions. United Nations ESCAP are strengthening regional cooperation on low emission and climate resilient development, including energy transition, low carbon mobility, climate sensitive urban development, and climate smart trade. Corporations are showcasing good ESG practice should be also part of this regional cooperation. They could actively engage in international and regional partnerships to foster cooperation, exchange best practice, and innovate collectively towards carbon neutrality. So with that, I would like to conclude my remarks. Thank you very much for this opportunity and wish you a successful conference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nam. And indeed, it brings us further to our next session, which will be on fostering global partnerships for carbon neutrality and sustainable development. Please join me in welcoming our next keynote speaker, Mr. Thomas Gnocchi, Head of the European Union Office to Hong Kong and Macau. Mr. Gnocchi, the stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tricia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to speak to you once again this morning. Fortunately, even for a second time this morning, but for me, it will be a pleasure to address the summit once again. And the idea is to go into a little bit more detail of our different mission which are relevant to the summit. You have speaking addition into this briefly in the chat with the Malaysia and relevant theme in Boston to all the partnerships to carbon fabric-able and sustainable development. So I'd like to share EU green policies and what makes the EU a global leader for carbon neutrality and sustainable development. I touched on some of these issues earlier this morning, but I'll go into a little bit more detail here. First of all, the European Green Deal, which was launched in 2020, and the objective is to cut net emissions by 55% by 2030 and become the world's first climate neutral continent by 2050. Not only carbon neutral, but climate neutral. Secondly, in 2021, we adopted the European Climate Law, which made these goals legally binding for the European Union as a whole and for its 27 member states. Then there is the Fit for 55 package, which supports the goal of cutting net emissions by 55% by 2030. And this is a comprehensive set of EU legislation across the board, driving the full modernization and transformation of our economy. Next is the European Union Emission Trading Scheme. This is an instrumental tool which has already cut emissions by 37% in covered sectors. It was extended to maritime transport in January this year, including shipping routes starting or ending outside the European Union. Thanks to this strong policy push, the EU is already decarbonizing. And as I mentioned earlier, since 1990, the EU has cut emissions by 25%, while the economy grew by 60%. Now the EU accounts for less than 10% of world greenhouse gases. I think it's in the order of 7-8%, if I'm not mistaken. And therefore, we cannot succeed alone in the fight against climate change and the environmental crisis. So we've been working with our partners and multilaterally. In multilateral fora, for example, we've been pushing for more sustainability in various settings, for sustainable trade at the WTO, for sustainable shipping at the IMO, for sustainable finance in the International Platform on Sustainable Finance. And obviously in the COPs, the EU has constantly pushed for the most ambitious possible agreements and to keep the 1.5 degree objective within reach. The COP28 in Dubai, the EU was instrumental in securing an agreement to accelerate the global transition away from fossil fuels, to triple renewables and to double energy efficiency this decade. And the EU and its member states are the biggest owners of international climate finance, with about euro 30 billion. And as I said before, a third of that going to Asia. The EU is also especially ambitious when it comes to pushing for ESG practices and sustainable finance. And we have a number of work streams ongoing in this area. First of all, on European green bond standards. These were adopted in November 2023, and this is a voluntary uniform requirements for bonds issuers that wish to use the designation European Green Bond. Secondly, on taxonomy, these bond standards are aligned with taxonomy, and all green bond proceeds will need to be invested in activities that are aligned with EU taxonomy. And this will foster consistency and comparability, benefiting both issuers and investors. Issuers can demonstrate that they are funding legitimate green projects, and investors' confidence in green investments will be enhanced. On EU taxonomy, in more detail, this entered into force in 2020, and this is a classification system that defines criteria for economic activities that are aligned with a net zero trajectory by 2050. It does not ban investments in activities not labeled as green, but it does limit which ones companies and investors can claim are climate friendly. I mentioned before, this is also the common ground taxonomy is also I think a fruitful area of cooperation which we have with China. If there are companies that find it challenging to navigate the taxonomies, the European Commission launched a user-friendly website for stakeholders to navigate in a simple and practical manner. So this can be found on our website. Also, transparency of ESG ratings providers. There's been a political agreement on this in February this year. And under the new rules, ESG rating providers will need to be, first of all, be authorized and supervised by the European Securities and Market Authority, ESMA, and they'll need to comply with transparency requirements with regard to their methodology and sources of information. This will strengthen the reliability and comparability of ESG ratings and boost investor confidence in sustainable products. The green bonds, EU taxonomy, and new rules for ESG providers have a common ultimate objective, and that is to channel more private investment into green activities. This is vital since the governments across the world can't do this alone, and trillions are needed in private investments to decarbonize the world. I will share now two additional instruments which serve similar purposes while they also push for a deep transformation of business practices. They are the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. First of all, on the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. This entered into force in January last year, and it aims at modernizing and strengthening the reporting rules concerning the social and environmental information. It requires companies to report using common mandatory standards. It ensures that investors and other stakeholders can assess the impact of companies on people and the environment. So which companies are concerned by this legislation? First of all, large EU companies and EU-listed companies. Non-EU companies with annual EU revenues of at least 150 million euros under certain conditions also fall under this directive if they own either a large EU company or an EU subsidiary listed in the EU or an EU branch with at least 40 million euros of turnover. The implementation will start from 2025 for EU companies and from 2028 for non-EU companies. The companies in the scope of this legislation will have to report according to the European sustainability reporting standards. These are different from the ISSB. For instance, ISSB looks after financial materiality, while ESRS looks after double materiality. But the two were developed with interoperability in mind. In May, EFRAG, which is the body advising on ESRS, and ISSB jointly released an interoperability guidance, showing that companies reporting under European standards can comply with global ones with minimal additional effort. And this reflects the Commission's commitment to minimizing reporting costs for companies. On the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, the second initiative I mentioned, this was adopted just this month, in fact, on the 13th of June this month. And it establishes a corporate due diligence duty whereby companies must identify and address environmental and human rights impacts of their operations, their subsidiaries, and their value chains. It creates an obligation for large companies to adopt a climate change mitigation plan. And why was it needed? 70% of businesses in a consultation we launched called for new due diligence rules. Businesses were willing to act, and progress had been slow and uneven, so hopefully with this directive we can go forward on this. Again, which companies are concerned? Large EU companies with over 1,000 employees and over 450 million euros of turnover worldwide, but also large non-EU companies with 450 million euros of turnover in the EU. This then targets 7,000 companies in total. And this directive, the due diligence directive, will apply with a gradual phase-in between 3 and 5 years. And on enforcement, the victims can claim reparations from a company in a European court for failed due diligence, leading to violation of either environmental or human rights standards. And national supervisory bodies will be able to sanction these companies. The benefits are multiple. For citizens, there's more transparency, enabling informed choices. For companies, this will reduce compliance costs and uncertainty by addressing fragmentation of national rules, by providing a uniform legal framework and a level playing field. It'll lead to better risk management, more resilience, and increased competitiveness, great access to finance and sustainable development, investment, and increased trust in business by consumers. Companies in Asia will also be impacted. European companies will work with suppliers with high environmental and human rights practices, thus driving, hopefully, the transition also in Asia. For developing countries in Asia, the benefits will include a better protection of human rights, labor rights, and environmental standards, and an increased take-up of international standards. To conclude, as you can see, given the urgency of the situation, the EU keeps moving forward and is leading global decarbonization efforts. And Hong Kong can lead with us. Hong Kong can take advantage of its position as a financial, sourcing, and trading center to connect carbon markets in Asia and Europe and promote global standards and interoperability. Hong Kong can lead on the push for more sustainable supply chains and can further develop, in terms of mobility, sustainable airline fuel and green shipping. And this will also, we believe, strengthen Hong Kong's competitiveness. I already mentioned in my previous speech the strong EU and Hong Kong economic and financial relationship. So let's build on these strong links to create a better and greener future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gnocchi. And it is definitely fortunate that you came back for a second time to share with us all the regulations and the frameworks that are happening right now. On the ESRS, I definitely can recommend you to go on the website as well. There is a step-by-step process on how the framework standards is implemented and how it is actually working on the rest. So thank you so much. One more time, a huge round of applause for Mr. Gnocchi. Thank you. The following session now is dedicated to a very relevant topic, sustainable banking. And we are privileged to have as our next keynote speaker the inspiring Mrs. Serena Mack, Executive Director, Sustainable Finance, Institutional Banking Group, DBS Bank Limited. Mrs. Mack, the stage is yours. Thank you so much.
I'm back for the second time also. I hope you're enjoying your coffee a little bit, and I'm here to talk about live more carbon less. Now, how do we live more carbon less? I think the previous speakers all spoke about all the regulatory reporting and different standards, and I'm here as a banker, so I don't want to talk about reports and standards. I wanted to talk about why we wanted to do it, some practical examples, and I wanted to leave you with some of, how should I put it, product specifications of sustainable finance to just trigger some thoughts, and I look forward to actually furthering the conversation with all of you offline afterwards. There we go. I spoke a little bit about sustainability necessity already, so I'm not going to dwell on this further. But do know that a lot of companies produce sustainability reports. Now what's next? Now that you have a sustainability report, you know what your carbon emissions are, you know where your social numbers are, you know your gender of, like your management and your employees. Now's the time to do what? Now's the time to actually improve those statistics. Maybe it's just me, but I always feel like you kind of have to do a health check before you can improve your health conditions. So the sustainability report is the health check, and the action that you can take to improve the condition, to improve the metric, is the important next step. So let's not forget about that. Now, let me incentivize you a little bit.
over 1/3 of global consumers actually say that they are willing to pay more. Not willing to pay more. So how much more? Now, it depends on the quality of the product, of course, but they are indeed looking for sustainable products. They are looking for sustainable solutions. And I think that's why when you go out and consume, or you go out to travel, you go around you and you can actually see more products are being promoted as sustainability, right? Now, I also spoke a little bit about, enhancing business performances already. So if you're a business owner, I think one thing that I do wanted to kind of mention is that as a business owner, incorporating sustainability, there's a myth busting to it. A lot of people think it's a cost. I spoke about earlier, this is not a risk and regulatory issue, but an opportunity. So think of it as an opportunity. Think of all the new tablewares that restaurants are needing to buy. Think of all the automotives needing to change their construct. Think of all the subsidies that the government is actually giving to promote green businesses. So this is indeed an opportunity. And the earlier that you take the opportunity, the more market advantage that you're going to have. So this is the important message. Now, DBS, we have 3 sustainability pillars. The first one is responsible banking. So I do have to mention that we are a signatory to the Net Zero Banking Alliance. So we are committed to net zero together with our clients, as well as transitioning to low carbon for our own finance emissions. But then remember, our finance emissions come from our clients. So we're on the same boat together. That's why we do want to ensure that our clients are well informed and our relationship bankers are knowledgeable to walk the journey together. We cannot just do it alone. So the transitioning is on beyond just kind of at the sustainable finance side of it, is probably more to the end of the spectrum already. So as the project initiation stage, the product design, you already have to put in sustainability components to it. And so that's why, think about us as, a player in the ecosystem to enable your capital expenditure, to introduce you to good partners, to introduce you to advisories to actually help you with that journey. Now, of course, when we think about responsible business practices, we also wanted to embed ESG factors in our business solutions. And of course, Serena here, being your sustainable finance banker, cannot do it alone. So we try to train all of our relationship managers within the corporate banking team to be aware of climate change and to be aware of ESG risk in order for us to do it together. So all our relationship managers in the corporate banking team are equipped with climate change and sustainability knowledge to help our clients with this journey. Now, I also wanted to highlight that we have an impact beyond banking segment where our foundation team actually looks at specific social issues and try to work towards helping not just our clients this time, actually helping the communities that we're in to improve on this. So, for example, we did a social enterprise summit actually not long ago to help, like the elderly sector and promote, technology that helps them as well. So actually, we are embedded into, the communities that we're in, and we want to contribute beyond our client engagement. Science time. This is our path to net zero. We published this probably a year, 2 years ago. But this was actually our white paper that talks about how we want to work with our clients across different sectors to achieve net zero. The important thing here is that I'm not sure whether I think we are still the most comprehensive, ambitious set of targets. So think about targets for a minute. If you have a bank-wide target, then you can manage all your portfolio all in one basket and you can engage all clients all in one. But we think slightly differently. So we think that there are actually a lot of high-emitting sectors within the businesses. So for example, can you work with aviation sector the same way you can work with a real estate company? Probably not, because you will be advocating different things. I'm not sure my real estate clients will be interested to, talk about sustainable aviation fuel with me, for example. Or my, aviation client might not be as interested to talk about retrofit or, like building technology. Same case goes. So for us, we have looked at 7 sectors across our markets that are high emitting. So we set up targets and we measure ourselves against individual industry glide paths. So we're measuring ourselves against aviation glide path, IATA, and net zero. We are measuring our oil and gas against IEA's glide path. So we're trying to be science-based. So we have 7 sectors across our markets on emission targets. And then we also thought there are a couple of sectors that are still quite nascent in actually doing their sustainability journey, or at least measuring their emissions, let alone disclosing. So we say, look, let's try to engage them and hope that they will start to disclose their numbers. As I was mentioning before, health check. We know what the numbers are, then you go about improving them. Now, it is not without challenges. I'm sure all of you here who try to measure your carbon emission will acknowledge that it's not as easy as looking at your electricity bill and try to look backwards and say, this is my emission. That is the simplest formula. I encourage you to do so because that is the first step. But looking at the holistic target is not an easy task. Same case for us. We not only we have one number, we have 9. So we evolving standards on the different sector industry level is continuously a challenge. But I think it's important to note that we kind of have to start somewhere. So it is challenging, but I think it is a worthwhile example because all these data provided us with a lot of transparency. And not only transparency, it helped us a lot when we are engaging our clients in these sectors about how we want to work with them towards the decarbonization targets. It made the conversation a lot more productive and fruitful. So it is, I think, a worthwhile exercise at the very least. We just produced our sustainability report, I can't say just, 4 months ago, where we reported for the second time our progress towards these targets. And we're quite transparent. We say some of these we're on track, some of these we are almost on track, and some of these we might not be on track for different reasons. But we do explain it. And I think transparency is another thing that goes a long way when it comes to talking about sustainability targets. Now, transition financing. I think in terms of sustainability, we do understand that, you probably can't ask a coal-fired power plant to switch to renewables immediately. It probably just cannot happen. Reason why is because there are kind of trade-offs. When you think about, for example, we did a energy transition mechanism. We helped a coal-fired power plant to be phased out somewhere in ASEAN sometime last year. When we were looking at that, there are a couple components. First angle, it's always great to retire a coal plant early from a climate risk perspective, right? Because you reduce your carbon emission. Now what? Will the people within that area that needs the electricity still have the electricity? Will the people around the area still be employed? So there are indeed trade-offs when we actually host these projects. So we have to think about things like energy stability. We have to think about just transition. We have to think about employability. There are a lot of angles to it. So when we think about transition financing, one thing actually is for certain is that we understand that adaptation is the key to survival. So I think first thing is we have to work with our clients to take that first step. And that first step might actually involve some different trade-offs. But, as a player in the ecosystem, as a bank, we're here to help. I promised you I'll provide you with some case studies and examples of structures. So here's the structuring. This is the banker side of it. We're done with the science. So sustainable finance usually are split in 3 different types. One is sustainability, where it's activity-based, i.e. you actually have a specific project that you want to be financed, and that project actually has a specific environmental, social benefit to it. And once you can quantify the benefits, then you will probably likely be eligible for green, social, thematic type of sustainable finance. And note here, we say, this is the, like industry jargon. We say the use of proceeds are restricted to defined projects. That's one way. Now, the other way to structure this is go by sustainability linked. I spoke to someone outside earlier. actually on sustainability linked is actually less restrictive. It's on the corporate level target. But I think the challenge is on the other hand of it, i.e. the corporates need to have their own numbers, have their own metric, and have to have a reduction target that is ambitious. So that is the important part of it. So understand that this outcome-based. So instead of ring-fencing the money for a specific project, we say, okay, we understand that you have corporate targets to meet. You might have different business lines, and we're happy to support you on that. And as a result, you can use the money, you can use the capital in your own capital plans. However, please do commit that you will have improvement in your sustainability metrics. So that's another way. Now, the third way is the either activity-based or outcome-based with a transition angle. Now, being transition, I think is known that transition itself is a transition to low-carbon economy type transition. Yeah. So it has to come with a greenhouse gas emission or carbon reduction that is scientifically proven. Especially as we know, I think you've seen actually the Hong Kong government is trying to come up with a transition taxonomy sometime later in the year in certain parts and pilots in China, like Shanghai, like Hebei, they already have a transition taxonomy. It's usually tagged to high-emitting sectors with specific technology and scientific targets. So these are some additional components that high-emitting sectors can think about as they want to embed themselves into sustainable finance transactions. Advertisement time. So we covered the science, we covered the structuring, now we cover the advertisement. So DBS, I think at the end of the day, we are a bank and we try to work with our clients on sustainability or sustainable finance transactions. And very proud and very glad to report that we are recognized in the market. So we have country awards in Hong Kong. We are awarded with the biggest ESG impact and proudly Best Bank for Sustainable Finance in Hong Kong. So my team is here. Thank you to my team as well. So at the end, I also want to leave you with something. So what's happening over here for SMEs? So I spoke earlier in my opening speech about that sustainability is not just for large corporates. It's also across the spectrum for SMEs. SMEs account for 98% of the Hong Kong economy. It is real economic driver, so we can't forget about them. Now, SMEs, we did a survey actually. We have a great business class with like 60,000 members in it, and we asked them. So are they interested to do sustainability? Do they want to embrace sustainability? And we asked our consumers, are they willing to pay more? So here are the statistics. So I spoke about it a little bit more, but I wanted to kind of solidify it a little bit with numbers and tell you, yes, it's not just from DBS. It's actually from a customer survey that actually customers out there in Hong Kong, this survey is done particularly in Hong Kong, that they are willing to pay more. Now, final slide, another not advertisement, but remember in my opening speech, I spoke about we have forged partnerships with utility companies, with payment solution providers, and this is a real example I do wanted to share. So this is not something that we spoke about as scientific, holistic, theoretical discussion. This is real life happening. So together with CLP and KPay, we have a partnership that offers sustainable banking solutions to encourage paperless operation to support their low carbon journey. And there is subsidy for our clients to purchase renewable energy certificates so that they can reduce their carbon footprint a little bit. We also try to offer preferential deposit accounts as well to help them on this journey. And we also want to say that we are actually growing the ESG Alliance. So we're actually rallying with large corporates in Hong Kong to launch low carbon rewards program. I'm not sure if a few of you are actually out there shopping nowadays, but somewhere in Kowloon and New Territories, if you walk past a shopping center, you probably will see a DBS booth talk about low carbon rewards. But I'll leave you hanging with this because wait for our PR sometime in July. There is more to come. With that, I close my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Mack, and congratulations as well on all the achievements for DBS. We will be looking out for all the booths. Our next session will be a rather provocative one. From compliance to beyond compliance. Worth it or not? Allow me to introduce you our next speaker who is brave enough to speak on such a topic, Dr. Bruce Chong, Primary Climate Technical Advisor of A4CR, Fellow and Director Arab. Dr. Chong, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Morning, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored today to speak on behalf of Asian Corporate Coalition for Climate Change Resilience, so A4CR. A knowledge sharing and capacity building platform for listed companies in this region, which the World Green Organization, WGO, is the founding members. So thank you very much for the invitation from Alex and also William to allow us to share this topic with you. So my purpose today is to bombard you with a little bit more thoughts from industrial practitioners as well as listed companies. Basically, the previous speakers talked about the latest trend, both overseas and local. And I would like to focus on two key topics because of A4CR, we are more on climate. So we divide into two on carbon and climate. Apart from disclosure, what else we can do? Well, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange already issued the latest ESG report framework in April, just 2 months ago. And the gist of it on carbon, basically, I am sure that if you're in Hong Kong or you're familiar with the latest requirements, on carbon, basically, next year, all companies, they need to report Scope 1 and 2. And then on Scope 3, the big listed companies, they need to, next year, 2026, mandatory requirement on others, Scope 1 and 2. Of course, not only Scope 3, but probably Scope 4 in the future. But basically, those mid-cap or small companies, voluntary based. Big company, top-tier company, basically everything they need to come under the mandatory requirement on carbon. Now on climate, I would like to draw your attention to some keywords. Basically, if you see here, paragraph 30 or 33, is under the latest Appendix C of Stock Exchange Hong Kong. And some blue highlighted part is basically how they align with ISSB Section 1 and 2. The keywords here basically is on climate-related physical risks and opportunities. The keywords is the percentage. And then down there, the capital deployment basically is capital expenditure, financing, and investment. All this was actually pointing to quantification, right? Fiscal quantification is not only qualitative. You need to get the numbers. Whatever the numbers are, you need to get the numbers. This is the key message. Right now, a quick recap on carbon and climate. Now, let's focus on the key message of today. I'll just quickly go through with you one by one. On carbon first, what are we now doing? I think we all agree that, commercially available or free of charge calculation tools, whatever, the methods and approach are there. It's just out there. So basically, companies, whatever how big you are, you can just simply calculate, estimate your Scope 1 and 2. So disclosure basically is common already. And then a lot of companies already set out the target, be it a very granular target or just a big target for the whole company. Now, what else we need to think about is, having set out your target as well as your inventory, you having your plan at granular level that makes you reach the targets, in this coming in the years to come. This is question number one. And then have your Scope 3 plan ready. How realistic it is and how practical it is to point you to the right direction. And are they also implementable? Now, Scope 3 basically represent most of your carbon emissions across the whole corporate. Across different sectors here, I just quote some examples from the key industry, from a pharmaceutical logistic company. The first one basically is textile company as well as real estate developers. All of them, not most, all of them, the Scope 3 represents more than 90%. So is it important? Well, let's further break it down into just Scope 3, and then I'm sure that you understand there are 15 categories of Scope 3, and among all of them, I'm not going to tell you all because of time, but just highlight some key among all these important sectors. Like, for example, your purchased goods and services, your partners, your materials used, i.e. the category number 2, capital goods, especially for the real estate industry, the construction materials, as well as your downstream partners, for example, your use of sold products, your products, as well as your listed asset, meaning your tenants. So here are the key aspects of Scope 3. The key message here basically is that if you don't know your Scope 3, you don't know or you don't understand fully of your business, because most of your business activities basically across the core item, is plural form, core items of scope 3 subcategories. If you don't know, basically if you miss these pieces of work that you need to do anyway, right, and then basically you will miss the core business activities and identify more opportunities, if you like, also the risk in the years to come. Now, I fully encourage you to ride on a more scientific-based approach to report your inventory and follow the target, through a more rigorous approach. Because in Hong Kong or other places, basically the utilities companies have already done for you. You can just, set a target is super easy. No need to get in your technical consultant or whatever academia. Within 10 seconds, you just check CLP and Hong Kong Electric, what are the targets in the years to come, and then you just directly follow if you use your electricity as most of your activities. Directly follow. No need to think about, what are the granular plan and detailed plan. Follow, and then it works. But the point is, it's just a basic. What else you need to do is to follow science-based target, more on your demand side, and then identify your risk and opportunities down the road. As I mentioned, scope 3 basically means a lot. Your whole business regime, Now, this line, again, I'm not going to tell you every word, but basically the message is, just for scope 3, you need to go through sort of a more rigorous exercise from the data collections and then the boundary definition, etc. So the message is, the process is relatively complex, and it needs to go through a more onerous exercise in order to make it more granular and contextualized for your use. Let me give you a few more examples. I just told that within the 15 categories, there are some key categories which are more dominant or more relevant to corresponding industry. Now, here is an example of a textile company, right, with global presence. Their retail chain basically with more than 1,700 suppliers, in different locations together with their factories, and representing more than 60% of the scope 3 emissions. What they need to do, or what the value added after doing the whole exercise of engaging with suppliers to conduct their own energy audit, so the upstream understanding of what's happening in terms of energy and resources harnessed by their partners, and then set out the target together with them, basically to help them to save more cost, together with their partners, and then provide advice and recommendations, the guideline for different types of partners in the upstream in order to help them to save resources in energy. Now, another example is a logistic companies, again, with global presence across regions from Japan, Europe, Brazil, US, and mainland China. Their key pain point is that even though they are doing some scope 3 emissions analysis, they are not consistent. Some of the jurisdictions, like in the UK, already require the reporting on LCA, life cycle assessment. But the approach of doing LCA in the UK and in mainland China basically are different, so they can't just compare apple to apple. And then another key pain point is that there are a lot of material use. Now it's capital goods, category 2. Because of the logistic companies, they are doing a lot of retrofits from time to time. So maintenance, a lot of parts, materials are being used. So inconsistency in terms of comparing the material use, as well as a consistent approach of understanding the embodied carbon from the materials. Now, this is the pain point. The final output is that to standardize the global approach on embodied carbon with an LCA handbook published, basically to help them to save relevant costs and then make comparison more reasonable. The third example, category 13, the downstream listed assets, I think is more relevance to real estate developers because there are a lot of tenants, right? They're the landlord, and then they lease out to the tenants, and then they need to understand their tenants, what's happening and how much, again, the energy and carbon they're emitting. A lot of good examples here in Hong Kong. I don't want to quote the name of the recent real estate developers. I think the key message here is that to set out a common platform for both landlord and tenant, engage your tenant, and then through the platform, incentivize for higher or more granular disclosure through more incentive schemes as well as technology enablement for all of them. So given the time, I give you more example. MTR is one of our A4CR key members, right? And then I would like to give you another example that what is being done, in this company. 2 years ago, they publicly commit science-based targets. That's why I'm, advocating that you need to follow the science-based target because it requires you to do more instead of just following an electricity company. So these are the SBT on Scope 1 and 2. This company is committing to the public. And then do remember that this is a conglomerate with both local presence and international business, not only in Hong Kong, but also elsewhere in mainland China, Europe, and Australia. So when we talk about Scope 1, 2, 3, it is complex again. And then complex meaning various BU and partners we need to control and monitor, and collectively they need to reach out to the target they commit to the public. The key message here for this slide is not on 1 and 2, because we already done a boundary setting and then set out the target. The key message here is ongoing monitoring. Now, having set out your target, how do you make sure it will reach out to the target at the end or in 2030 and every decade or every time interval? Now, this is important to set out what we used to use the term MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification mechanism. A more systematic or systemic approach needs to be set out, be it a complex or conglomerate, also in a company with multiple players and BUs. Now, here is that we need to set out a more systematic framework for data collections through different BUs. You can imagine how many, in this company, as well as data verification, analysis, the procedures, as well, of course, for the C-suite, for the reporting, etc., on the data visualization and reporting. Now, on the left-hand side, basically, is that we need to, down to a workable and practical level, who are the data owner? For example, tunnel ventilation, for example, the electricity within the station and different line managers and different stations, as well as, different district and regional managers. So line by line and layers by layers. So data owner, who are the data owner? And who will be the data endorser and approver? So the hierarchy of approval, if we need to make it granular and practical and agreeable, within the companies, basically it's a nightmare, right? But still, you need to go through this nightmare in order to create more value. The solidarity within your company, a more systematic approach and more collaboration, a more transparency within your company through this nightmare and hard process. And on the right-hand side, basically, everybody, you can just download from internet a lot of sort of the visualization approach, display different factors and KPIs within your companies. Well, this is not difficult part. The difficult part is to agree with different layers of players across the sectors within the company. Now, given the time, carbon, done. Climate. Now, another key topics, of course, are both mitigation and now moving on to adaptation and climate resilience. Again, I just recapture what's been included in the stock exchange guideline, which is directly captured from that. The key message here is that the qualitative and quantitative approach, this is the sample from the stock exchange. They tell us how to do it, right? These are the two key samples. You can do it more qualitatively by using some sort of risk indicators, high, mid, low in different colors, the qualitative approach. Quantitative approach across different years, from near term to the future, down to 2080, the end of the century, across different climate hazards, what would be the value at risk of different types of key hazards. Now, these are the approach set out already. Now, let's stop a while, 5 seconds, to sort of briefly summarize what's been being done. Climate, I would comment that qualitative reporting has been common, and quantitative approach also becoming more common. The key reason is that there are a lot of sort of affordable, commercially available platform or tools to help you to do this kind of exercise. But the next question is, well, we need to be a bit cautious of the results. Even though the results can help you do the disclosure and compliance, just for the sake of compliance. And also, we need to double check, based on the results, can the results drive more actionable items or initiatives from your company? So meaning, are we actually doing something to protect, to enhance our asset, our physical asset? Two reminders. Now, this is the first reminder. Now, we observe a lot of companies, given the time and also for the sake of disclosure, already rely on some quick assessment tool. And again, what I try to convey to you is that are they fully reliable? I just give you a quick example. I have a client in Shanghai. And then through the quick assessment approach, they told, or the results suggested that in Shanghai, the risk of typhoon impact is at low level in Shanghai. Now, the client's site is actually in the river mouth of Yangtze River. All right, and then the results just simply tell the client, oh, the risk on typhoon and storm surge in your location is low. And then the client just asked me, well, is it okay? Can I just talk to my C-suite and then, okay, in my design, just let it, it's business as usual. And I was, no, because actually a lot of climate scientists in this region already told us typhoon is not only happening in South China Sea or southern part of China. Your right-hand side example, Doksuri last year, basically is one of the key examples. That typhoon basically will hit the northern, eastern, and inner part of mainland China more intensely and more frequently, together with heavy rainstorm, right? So the judgment or sort of the quick results from the quick assessment tools sometimes is not fully reliable, so we need to be cautious. Number two reminder is, a lot of this kind of tool, they usually consider, or mostly consider the climate exposure because they rely on IPCC AR6 and the latest climate result as a higher, sort of the lower resolution, right? Meaning 0 kilometer by kilometer, several hundred kilometer per kilometer. So basically, it's not locational specific, right? And this is for number one. They only usually consider climate exposure. One key thing they usually miss, now given, again, the time and resources, adaptive capacity at both city, district, or building level usually are not considered as a factor for risk assessment. What does it mean? Adaptive capacity, for example, take Hong Kong drainage network as an example, is usually not within the risk assessment tool. This is adaptive capacity about the drainage system in Hong Kong. Where are the coastal protection located or already retrofit in the corresponding area of Hong Kong? This is, again, the capacity in engineering that usually not taken into account in the quick assessment tool. How about the building itself? How old is the building? You know, are there any capacity or redundancy of the building? Here is an example of air conditionings, right? All these factors are usually neglected or not considered. So sometimes the key message is that quick assessment tools sometimes underestimate or overestimate your risk. So when we are considering, you know, our actions seriously, we need to be more asset type specific. We need to down to asset level to understand our constraints and how to actually improve our situation. There are a lot of spatial, commercial, financial, physical constraints. If we need to improve our resilience, you know, our protective or protection level within individual asset. So you can imagine, even within a building, within a small part or a small portion of a building, say for example, there's underground space and there's a big hole within your ground level, that you need to be very cautious and, you know, consider every component of the building carefully, right? One more slide basically is to further substantiate my message. Be cautious about your underground facilities. Right? There are numerous plant rooms, especially during the past 20 years, a lot of developers, they used to put their plant rooms from electrical to mechanical to plumbing plant room, you know, underground to save more space, obviously. And be cautious about this. And again, you can't get these sort of solutions out of the quick assessment tool. You need to, you know, be more granular in order to understand the risk and then deal with them accordingly. Now, these are the two last slides I would like to convey. The message is that when you do the assessment, assuming you are doing, you know, at a correct level or deeper level after your body check, as well as a deeper dive at corresponding asset, you need to sort of be more systematic across your companies. For example, this is, again, one of our key members in A4CR already produced what they call corporate level climate resilience guidance for their new project and new development. right? And then they try to use this guidance to instruct, every new project. You need to follow the thinking process and then select which one is at a more higher risk hazard. And then you need to do the deep dive accordingly. So these are the guidance for the project teams across, the company to make sure they're doing consistently. This is the last slide. Basically, within the guidance, not only sort of the framework level, but also down to implementation level. What are the approaches and measures? Even your asset is at relatively low risk, you still need to have the precautionary measures and, of course, the initiative within the asset. And then, of course, for higher risk asset, you need to do a more deep dive analysis. So here, basically, are the content that you can consider for doing it in your company, right? I hope you are with me so far. Thank you very much, and look forward to more discussion with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cheung. And that was a pleasure to see everything as well and learn from you. Now, as we transition from the visionary thoughts to actionable discussion, it's time to delve into our first panel discussion. In the morning session, managing climate risk and opportunities, a burden for corporation, yes or no? This panel will be moderated by the managing partner of Cavendish Investment Corp, Mr. Jean-Sébastien Jacquin, and joined by the inspiring panelist, Mrs. Serena Mak from DBS, Professor Sharad Chopra from CTU, and Professor Wing-Ming Leung from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. I would like to invite the moderator and the panelists to the stage, and the stage is yours. Please come to the stage. Mr. Dennis Nye, please. Thank you. The microphones are coming to the stage.
Hello? I believe we are on. Perfect. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our panel. It's my pleasure to have you here today. Our panel will be exploring the multifaceted challenges and opportunities corporations face in managing climate risk. So it will delve into the strategic, financial, and operational impact of climate change on businesses, and discuss how corporations can integrate these climate considerations into their core strategies. The discussion will focus on the role of sustainable finance, data-driven sustainable engineering, and public awareness in navigating these complexities. So perhaps in terms of strategic direction and sustainable finance, my question will be for Dennis, the first question at DBS. And we've listened to Serena's speech just earlier on. Given your role at DBS Bank in providing strategic direction for sustainable finance transaction, how does your role in sustainable finance play in helping corporations in managing their climate risk and seize opportunities?
When we talk about climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, we have a tendency to blame some of the heavy emitting industries. But if we look at these industries, they actually are an important part of our economies, and they support our daily living. So without addressing these kind of heavy emitting industry, we're not going to win this fight against climate change, and we're going to miss the Paris Agreement target as well. So here, sustainable finance will be a very important mechanism for these heavy emitting industry to invest in clean technology, in transforming their operation to adopt less brown material in their production, and also to help them to decarbonize.
Thank you very much. My next question will probably be more on the data-driven sustainability indicators, and it will be for Professor Chopra. Your research focused on designing these indicators for sustainability and resilience, and we all know that these are important factors. How can these indicators be effectively integrated into corporate decision-making processes to enhance the environmental and economic and social feasibility?
Thank you. So mostly in our work, what we're doing is we're trying to take the complexity around the built environment, and all of these sustainability and resilience decisions are not directly in control of the entity that is reporting on them or is making decisions to counter them. A lot of it is happening from the ecosystem within which you're embedded. And so understanding your sustainability in terms of scope 3 emissions, carbon emissions, where they're coming from, who should you be partnering with to reduce those carbon emissions, all these kinds of questions, as well as supply chain shocks. Are my partners ready to be resilient to, say, a policy change in the region that I'm partnering with a company with, or an extreme event, or a new technology coming in? All of these factors have to be considered while making decisions on our allocation on either sustainability, so that's the climate mitigation side, right? So climate mitigation, as you've rightly pointed out, takes majority of our sustainable finance resources. On the resilience end, it's meager, right? Climate adaptation through sustainable finance, we need more instruments for that. One area would be resilience bonds. I think that's a big area that is underexplored, and as you pointed out, I mean, we're not going to meet our climate carbon reduction targets. It's worrisome, and we have to invest in our resilience. We're not investing enough at this stage, and I think the sustainable finance community has a role to play there.
Thank you very much. My next question and topic will be on climate communication and corporate responsibility. It will be for Professor Leung. Given your experience in hosting TV programs on climate change, how important is it for corporations to effectively communicate their climate risk strategies to the public? And also, what role does transparency play in building trust with stakeholders?
Thank you for the questions. First of all, I don't know why I'm invited here. I am a science guy, and my TV program actually deal with promoting science education for the general public. So my experience cannot lend itself to the serious discussion of climate communication here. But to answer your question, I mean, I can only answer your question from my layman point of view. I think communicating risk strategy nowadays is not an option. It is a must. Say, for example, even in Hong Kong, which is a very well-built city, people are excellent, very well protected from the elements. But after a series of very hot weather and also the once in a century or once in a 500 rainstorm last year, not to mention the flooding caused by by typhoons, everybody in Hong Kong knows that climate risk is real and present. So they expect you to tell them what you are doing. Are you prepared? So we must tell them how our climate resilience or risk strategies are. So this is one point. And then the other point is that although I'm not a savvy investor, I don't invest anything at all. But I know a lot of my friends who are investors, they are more conscious about the climate risk and opportunity when they are deciding their investment. So if you tell them that you are prepared, you have a very good strategic plan and so on, then you can attract more investment. And then the last point is, effective communicating climate risk is that if you don't communicate effectively, you will leave a knowledge vacuum between your corporation and your stakeholders. And that vacuum will eventually be filled, but not with correct information. It will be filled with false, erroneous information, and sometimes disinformation. You know, there are many people in the whole world that are still spreading climate misinformation. So we need to do that in order to avoid that knowledge vacuum. And then your final question is about transparency. I don't think anyone in this floor will doubt about the fact that transparency will build trust. Let me tell you just one story, which is a very old story, 13 years ago. You remember 13 years ago in 2011, we have a tsunami in Japan. We have a nuclear disaster in Fukushima. And people in Hong Kong are very worried about radiation, whether the disaster will cause any radiation consequences in Hong Kong and so on. So at that time, I was still working in the Hong Kong Observatory. I think that it is futile if I just tell the public that, okay, you don't need to worry, radiation will not affect Hong Kong. I don't think there's any use. So we built overnight a website to disclose the real-time radiation monitoring data in Hong Kong. And from the feedback of the media and the journalists, I think I have allayed the fear. And I think this is an example that tells that transparency actually builds trust.
Thank you, Professor Long. My next question will be for Dennis again in terms of ESG integration and banking. How do you foresee the role of banks evolving and driving sustainability efforts within the sustainability ecosystem? And maybe as a follow-up question as well, what strategies do you believe will help to bring in more stakeholders to incentivize sustainability? And do you see any sustainable finance instrument or initiative gaining traction in the coming years?
Yep, thank you. I think from a banking perspective, our very obvious role is to channel capital to the right place. To a large extent would be environmentally friendly, socially friendly projects. But I think what we see is we are also going beyond that. As my colleague Serena has mentioned, DBS has committed to net zero of our portfolio. And as more banks, more investors, asset management companies are also joining the net zero commitment. So we are all collectively aiming to reach net zero. That becomes a positive pressure to influence other industry along the value chain. So on the contrary, if a company is like lagging behind by a lot in the decarbonization, then they will see increasingly pressure from investors, banks. So that is a pressure that we think we can influence. As regards sustainable finance, it has picked up a lot of momentum in the past few years, no doubt about this. But I would say this is very much limited to the, let's say, the bond market, the large corp community, that side. It has not really come to the SME segment. But going forward, as we see the system being mature, we see a lot of data platform transparency being available, and we have a lot of taxonomies being developed. I think all these becomes more accessible to a wider group of companies. So I think what we see is there is still a lot of room for improvement for sustainable finance in the coming years, especially in the SME segments. And also beyond loans and bonds, which are the traditional sustainable finance instrument, we also see there is a trend going towards a wider range of instruments like trade finance, supply chain. So these, which have another momentum to drive sustainability to down the value chain to suppliers of corporates.
Thank you very much, Dennis. My next question will be for Professor Chopra. You alluded to earlier on in your conversation about resilience in built environment, and I'd like to come back on this because it's an important factor. So considering your expertise in the resilience of the built environment, what are some of the key strategies that corporations should adopt to ensure their infrastructure is resilient to climate-related risks?
Thank you. That's a really cool question, close to my heart, because it's really difficult to understand and wrap your head around, right? Because it's clearly resilience is not risk. Otherwise, we would have used the same word again, right? Resilience has to be thought of as something that is to deal with unknown unknowns. Risk is everything that we have experienced in the past. We have a lot of data on it. We know how we would react to it because we've developed contingency plans. We've learned from them. What happens when we have a couple of disasters that occurred together, right? Like the typhoon and the black rain event happening together. And these kinds of events are only going to increase. Now, Hong Kong has a really good infrastructure system, right? And I think we should really talk about the Hong Kong story from a resilience perspective because it is fantastic. Let's talk about the transportation system, public transportation system. One of the best in the world, clearly. The concern is that when we are dependent or we love somebody that much, there are also a vulnerability for us, right? You can think about your own people in your life. It's the same thing. If a city depends on public transportation that much, then it is a source of vulnerability for the city. And it's imperative that we have to build our infrastructure in such a way that we can bounce back. Even though it's amazing, it is especially becomes more important for us to save it in times of disruptions. And telling that story and explaining to folks that the public transportation is great, but then what do you do in situations? What is the way to behave in a disaster situation when you're in the MTR and something happens? How do you exit? How do you evacuate? How do you evacuate elderly? How do you evacuate young? At different times of the day. What if it's an event day that let's think about this rugby sevens. As detailed as that. If that's the day when we get the black storm event and and a typhoon and an event, it's going to be chaotic. Anyways, any of those events would leave the public transportation system quite chaotic. Either ways. So the story that emerges from all of our work is of cooperation. There's a need for cooperation and competition between players in the same sector because you are going to be facing with similar problems and there is a need for capacity building that can be learned through within the sector. And then going back to what you were saying, I think the finance bit is big. What we find is, as engineers, we find opportunities to build resilience in systems. But they have to be funded, and somebody has to put money there. And when we are doing carbon reduction, and we focus on carbon reduction completely and solely, and forget about resilience for a second, then we get into the problems like we were seeing in California, where they have a mandate to ban ICE vehicles, but then on the same week they have to put out an advisory that don't charge your electric vehicles because of the grid being vulnerable. Right? So both those things happen together. So if we don't think about our sustainability solutions with the resilience lens, then are we picking the wrong winners is my concern. And it's not about the technology per se, it's about the system, how you integrate the technology into your business, into your ecosystem. It can be worked out.
Those are very good points. And you're right, because the Hong Kong public system in terms of transport is excellence, but there shouldn't be any sense of complacency, more a sense of anticipation, and I think you're right. My next question will be for Professor Long again. In terms of climate change adaptation strategies, with your background in climate and environmental issues, what are some of the most effective adaptation strategies that corporation can implement to mitigate the impacts of climate change on their operations?
Again, this is an area that I don't know much. I'm basically a science guy. I study the basic science of climate change. But to answer your question, I think Professor CHEUK has bring some elements or a viewpoint which I would like to share again. Obviously, a good adaptation strategy has to be based on a thorough risk analysis. But when I say risk, I'm not just saying risk caused by climate change. We should consider risk of all kinds, natural risk and also risk caused by human activities. So in building our adaptation strategy, we have to consider the intersections of all those risks. Let me give an example. We all know that with all this kind of extreme weather, heavy rainfall, droughts, typhoons, and so on, it will have an effect to maybe agriculture, right? But probably you don't know that all over the world, whenever drought occurs, the farmers rely on groundwater. We are relentlessly extracting groundwater to the point that groundwater will be depleted sometime in the near future. So we have to consider in our adaptation plan, what should we do if we have a drought and we have no more groundwater? So this is some kind of mentality that I think any people dealing with adaptation should bear in mind. And then another point I would like to bring is that a good adaptation strategy should be one that on one hand enhance resilience and on the other hand can help to mitigate climate change. So once again, I can give you one example. In 2015, during the Paris discussion, negotiation, and so on, there's one idea which I don't know whether a lot of people heard about it or not. That is called 4 per 1,000. So what does it mean by 4 per 1,000? The idea is that soil is a very good sink of carbon, a very large sink of carbon. If we increase the carbon sink by 4,000th every year, then we can effectively reduce carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on one hand, and on the other hand, it will increase the resilience of agricultural productivity. Because if we increase the organic compound, which is actually carbon, in the soil, it enhances the fertility of the soil, and it will guarantee food security. So I think adaptation strategy has to be interdisciplinary. We have to call in experts from all walks from all disciplines to draw up a really good one.
Thank you very much. Maybe before opening up to the audience, I've got one topic that I'd like to perhaps share with the panel and see perhaps your point of view. In terms of balancing short-term cost and long-term benefits, which is crucial, obviously, in this topic, how can corporations balance the short-term costs associated with implementing sustainable practice with the long-term benefits of mitigating climate risk? I don't know if Professor Chopra or Dennis, you'd like to perhaps give a bit of insight, or Professor Long?
I mean, my sense is always about multifunctional systems, right? Like I think if you engineering systems that can provide you multiple functions, integrating multiple technologies together, designing systems that are not one-trick ponies, but have multiple sort of cash flow generating avenues is the way to go, right? Like, so you set up one capital infrastructure that's integrated. It could be any type of solution. I'm not trying to sell you a solution. I'm just saying, but integrating them, studying them, modeling the costs and benefits, putting large uncertainties on those, and saying that what are the chances of this being a successful bet, and doing the due diligence upfront is the key in my opinion.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there are any other questions. Maybe one last one, which I think is important also for this panel in terms of collaboration and innovation. What role do you see for the cross-sector collaboration and innovation in addressing climate risk and opportunities? And maybe more specifically, if you could provide some example of successful collaborations that have led to significant advancements in corporate sustainability.
Yeah, I think I can share a case that we have recently closed in terms of sustainable finance transaction. So I think mass transport, bus, these are sort of like heavy vehicles, and there has been a challenge to decarbonize this. So because infrastructure is not there yet for transforming to EV at this point of time. So I think every effort counts. So what we had in this transaction is we had a sustainability-linked loan to this coach bus company. So as part of this transaction, the company will have to make a target to speed up and accelerate the replacement of their older, less efficient vehicles. So what in return, as a result, is it speeds up a lot by decarbonizing their fleet. And at the same time, the air pollution get actually reduced a lot because of the more efficient engine. So I think that is an interesting example that for the sort of the brown sector to a less brown sector, which is quite important if we have to move the needle.
Thank you, Dennis. If there are any other questions, perhaps from the audience? There is a question there.
Shen, yes. You're the lucky one for the one question.
Hi, this is Winnie here. I just have a question. Just in case any of the audience here is one of the most influential world leaders, if they ask you why I have to perform climate action for my own country, what would you say?
And that's a quite challenging question as well.
As a world leader, why should you do climate action if you were a world leader? Do you have an answer?
I don't know. The answer should be obvious, I thought, because we're seeing extreme weather every now and then. We have risk, and which is intersecting, and the projection is that if we don't cut carbon dioxide emission and follow the path to net zero, it doesn't mean that the world will end, but at the same time, life will become more and more difficult. And we are generating lots and lots of problems. In particular, we have climate justice, because probably the richest people in the world would be sheltered from the impact of extreme weather. But for the poor people, the vulnerable people, they will bear the blunt of the impact and so on. With all those problems, that will obviously lead to social unrest, which, for example, China, we have 1.4 billion. We cannot afford any social unrest, and for that matter, for all other countries in the whole world. So I think, again, it is not an option. It is a must. It is a must. But of course, it all depends on whether we're choosing a more aggressive path or action, or we're just like many other countries are now doing, taking a wait-and-see approach, which is obviously not desirable. I hope I answer your question.
Maybe I just add. So I think your question is one sentence to sort of like convince. So I actually find it very interesting. I would actually ask why you can be excluded actually. Why you should not act? I mean, living in the same planet and we are facing the same reality of climate change. What is the reason of not acting? I think that is the more curious point that I would love to hear if someone say no to it.
Well, there are a lot of people who are saying no. There are people who have invested interest in many other business, and if they, well, this is what we call inconvenient truth, right? So if we acknowledge that climate change is man-made, if we acknowledge that climate change will bring disasters, then we have to shoulder the responsibilities. We don't want to shoulder, we don't want burden. So this is the mental part, and the other part is, of course, about finance, financial gain, and things like that.
Of course, I mean, we need scientists like you guys to show them this is the fact and this is the reality. This is what you have to deal with, yeah.
Yeah, but it is very complicated. There are lots and lots of study showing that by disseminating information is not enough, because information does not drive action. You have to use a very different kinds of approach. For example, you have to engage them in a very different way to tell stories so that they understand that they are part of the problem and things like that.
I think this is a very valuable point, and I just may want to add something. It's a global phenomena, and you mentioned obviously the poorer countries and the more developed countries, but it affects them both. Unfortunately, in some of the developed countries, they don't see it as such unless a tragedy happens. And you see right now in the Western world a lot of drought, a lot of heat, which is not, common and shouldn't be happening. So I think you're right, how to convey this information and perhaps more focusing on the current events that happen in Europe and also in North America. So it's not just the poor countries and the developed world. Are there any other questions?
I think we will have to round it up.
Perfect.
But I would like to give them, please, a round of applause to such an insightful and exciting panel discussion. Yes, I think we could actually keep talking about the responsibility and accountability and what does it mean, the information and the data. So once again, thank you so much. Please take your seats. Thank you. You can go this way. Yes, thank you. Now, we will move to our following keynote session. Please be reminded as well that after this session, there will be a lunch break from 12 until 2:30 p.m. 12:30, did I say 12? 12:30. Until 2:30 p.m. And I'm definitely looking forward to welcome you back to the empowering and thought-provoking sessions in the afternoon. I hope to see many faces with your energy back and ready to bring all the action. So without any further ado, our next session will be on sustainable innovation and technology in manufacturing industry. So please help me to welcome Mr. Kendrick Wong, Representative, Kingsford Development, Research and Development Director, Nanoshields Technology. Thank you so much.
Well, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to present here again. So a quick background on who I am and our company. My name is Kendrick, and I am the Research and Development Director of Nanoshields Technology. Nanoshields is a company that focuses on developing, producing new innovative materials with a focus on materials made with nanotechnology. But I'm also here representing Kingsfare. Kingsfare is a listed company in Hong Kong and produces and develops products for kitchenware and houseware products. Kingsfare is also the mother company of Nanoshields. It was founded in 1979 by my father, Dr. Alex Wong, and initially we had production facilities here in Hong Kong. In the 90s, he decided that since production capabilities were moving to the mainland, he too would also move his production capabilities. However, after observing specific aspects of the industry, he decided that he needed to change. And he changed the company's model from that of a traditional manufacturer to one that runs on a virtual manufacturing model. This way, the company is able to focus its resources and efforts on design, engineering, and the marketing side of product development and move away from the typical challenges of the traditional manufacturing model. In 2015, Kingsfare became a listed company, and 2018 was the forming of Nanoshields. However, today's topic is the sustainable innovation and technology in the manufacturing industry. Kingsfare, with its nearly 45 years in the industry, has contributed to adapting its supply chains to global ESG standards, but has consistently looked for ways to further promote and integrate ESG principles in its operations. So first, a quick intro overview of the manufacturing industry and its key characteristics. Major industry segments are generally separated for food, beverage, textiles and apparel, petrochemical, steel, machinery, automotive, aerospace, and whatnot. And what are some key characteristics that kind of found in all these segments? First, manufacturing is a capital intensive. Typically, it requires a significant capital investment in equipment, machinery, and production lines. Second, manufacturing is labor intensive, and certain segments, especially those with assembly lines, still heavily rely on human labor. Third, manufacturing is technology driven. Modern manufacturing increasingly depends on advanced technologies, including automation, digitization, and smart manufacturing. And last but not least, manufacturing has become highly internationalized. It requires companies from all sectors to navigate the global competition. And some trends that are already taking place right now are obviously the automation and digital transformation, sustainable development and green manufacturing, industrial structure adjustments and upgrading, and the reshaping of global value chains. So what are the benefits of being sustainable in manufacturing? Here are a couple. Environmental impact reduction. Manufacturing processes often have a significant environmental footprint, including resources consumption, energy use, and waste generation. Implementing sustainable practices in these processes can help to reduce the overall industry's carbon emissions, water usage, and waste, and therefore mitigate its impact on the environment. Resource efficiency. Sustainable manufacturing means focusing on optimizing the use of raw materials, energy, and water through techniques such as recycling and renewable energy adoption. Improve resource efficiency doesn't only bring benefits to the environment, but it also reduces our operational costs and enhances profitability. Competitive advantage. Consumers and businesses are increasingly prioritizing environmentally friendly products and services, creating a growing demand for sustainable manufacturing. Those who are able to embrace sustainability can differentiate themselves from the competition. They can enhance their brand reputation and gain a competitive edge in the market. But adopting sustainable policies early can also help prepare companies for future challenges such as climate change, involving consumer preferences and the growing global challenges of resource scarcity. Investing in sustainable technologies and practices help manufacturers future-proof their operations and ensure long-term viability. And last but not least, employee engagement and retention. Sustainable initiatives can help foster a sense of purpose and an environmental stewardship among employees. That leads to higher job satisfaction, morale, and retention. Polls and surveys from every major company have shown that a growing number of both millennials and Gen Z workers in the workforce are looking to join or even switch jobs, depending on whether or not the company is actively adopting sustainability practices and principles. And sustainability in manufacturing helps attract and retain those talent, and a strong focus on sustainability can be a valuable employer branding asset. So what does sustainability innovation look like in, say, Kingswear manufacturing? Here's a quick example. Kingswear has global design offices all around the globe. We have them in Los Angeles, Taiwan, Tokyo, Australia, and the UK, to name a few. These design offices help the company better understand the landscape of what a consumer wants by collecting and analyzing consumer preferences and the market demand in their respective regions. Let's take Europe, for example. Consumers in Europe, and increasingly across the world, are demonstrating a strong preference for products made with sustainable, environmentally friendly materials. This is driven by the growing environmental crisis, concerns about plastic pollution, and a desire to make more conscious and responsible purchasing decisions. These changes in consumer perceptions of sustainability, they increasingly associate sustainable materials with premium, high-quality products. This creates a positive brand image for companies adopting them. And with that shift in consumer perceptions, manufacturers and product developers can command high prices and strengthen brand loyalty while promoting sustainability in the market. So grab this. Oh. And so these are just some of the results of our, just kind of some examples of what King's Fair has been trying to do. And so one of them is recycling technologies, chemical recycling, advanced material recycling. It allows us to recover, reuse a wider range of materials. That includes hard to recycle plastics. That helps us reduce waste. It helps us close the loop in kind of this circular economy. Energy efficient technologies, such as LED lighting, more advanced HVAC systems, and industrial heat pumps drive a greater energy efficiency, especially in our supply chains. This helps our entire supply chain to reduce their carbon footprint and as well as their energy consumption. As well, our waste reduction technologies. So we have something called industrial symbiosis, where we have waste from one process becomes an input for another, and enables us to eliminate or repurpose waste streams. And we have seen sensor-based monitoring systems and that predictive maintenance tools that can help us identify and address the sources of the waste and as well reduce material and resource consumption. So what are some of the commercial projects that we have been working on? Waste reduction technologies. This is one of our prime examples of using coffee grounds, spent coffee grounds, which is our byproduct of after you ground a coffee, you make a coffee, and that is what the waste that remains. With the coffee industry growing as well, the waste from making coffee worldwide, whether from Starbucks or other coffee shops, those are going to be increasing low. And so what we've done is we've taken that spent coffee ground, we've made them integrated into plastics, and then used into our products. Now, by how much? We've been able to do it by 40%, integrate 40% of coffee grounds into our plastic-like products. That means 40% less use of plastic. And so what are some benefits? It has some antibacterial properties. We use less plastic, but it still retains the same strength. Because plastics, to this day, we are still benefiting from their structural integrity and the benefits they pose for everyday consumer usage. Another one is using it into our recycling technologies, and we integrate these new sustainable materials into tableware, utensils, takeout boxes, and food containers. And these are obviously biodegradable, compostable, and recyclable. Quick future outlook. These are some of the future outlooks that we are looking to progress upon, and that's additive manufacturing, 3D printing, advanced materials, which NanoShields is doing, sustainable energy solutions, closed loop water management, sustainable packaging solutions, and nano-engineered materials. But all these projects wouldn't be completely achieved without our partnerships with renowned universities, both international and domestic. And they bring a lot of benefits to us. It helps us access to cutting-edge research and technology. Helps us, these universities and research institutions, they're at the front of scientific and technology advancements, including in areas related to sustainable manufacturing. And these collaborations allow us to tap into their expertise and access their latest innovations, which can then be applied to improve our operations and products. They're also a talent pipeline and knowledge transfer. These institutions are the primary source of highly skilled graduates, researchers and engineers with the latest knowledge and skills in sustainable practices. These collaborations help us to recruit top talent and facilitate the transfer of knowledge and expertise from academia to the industry. Interdisciplinary approach, it often brings us experts from diverse fields, engineering, material science, environmental science, and business. And these collaborations can lead to innovative solutions that address the challenges of sustainable manufacturing and integrating technology, environmental, and business perspectives. It also provides us access to testing and prototype facilities, and their research labs often have specialized facilities and equipment, and testing capabilities that help us leverage for prototyping, pilot testing, and validating sustainable technologies and processes. Our public and private partnerships. Between academia and industry, we can facilitate and formate relationships with the government, with academia, and the private sector together to drive sustainable innovation. And these partners can leverage funding, resources, and policy to support and enable development and implementation of these sustainable manufacturing solutions. Last but not least, continuous improvement and adaptation. Ongoing collaboration with these academic institutions can help manufacturers stay abreast of latest trends, regulations, and best practices in sustainable manufacturing. And it allows us to continue to improve their processes, evolve sustainable requirements, and maintain a competitive edge. In conclusion, sustainable innovation, it helps bring a lot of benefit to us, but it also helps us to pursue helping change affect and advise on policy that would also further affect the ESG kind of policy and principles. And so I'll just leave with you a short comment from Paul McCartney, but it relates very deeply with us. There must be a better way to make the things that we want, a way that doesn't spoil the sky or the rain or the land. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Very impressive for all the solutions that are there and how we are moving into the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Now I would like to invite everyone to enjoy their well-deserved lunch break. Please fuel up enough for the exciting sessions on innovative strategies for sustainable practices after the lunch. And please go enjoy, empty your minds, mingle, get to know everyone who's all there. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.